Welcome everyone to another tutorial where I'm going to be showing you how to make a custom background of your choice that you can use in your level. And again, this tutorial is going to be super beginner friendly so that anybody can follow, and we're going to do everything step for step. So let's get right into it. So the very first step is you want to have an idea of how you want your background to look. So you want to choose different objects to basically craft your background, and I'm thinking of making a hexagon background that's gonna be gonna have like a little bit of cool effects, and then we're gonna make it follow the player just like this background behind there is gonna follow it. And I'm gonna show you guys how you can make sure that the background is always there when it needs to be. So the first thing, you can use scale and different methods to basically just come up with your own background. Right now I'm just copying and pasting these hexagon objects that you can find in here, and we're just gonna do a cool little hexagon pattern. I would say that should look pretty cool. So you want to have the background, I would say if you add this camera guide trigger, just add it, then you're gonna see these lines. So you want to make sure that the background is, almost as big as these lines. So it should be perfectly fit in there without having any issues. So we want to make sure that this one actually looks cool. So yeah, just copying and pasting this, just gonna make it like that. And just like that, we have a very cool pattern. But now what we're gonna do is we want to make sure that basically everything fits in this square like that. So now you can use different things to color your background, or changing the opacity of it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna simply select everything. If you are on PC, you can like hold shift and then you can have this, or if you're on mobile, just click on swipe and then you can kind of select everything. Just make sure you don't select the camera guide, and now click on edit object and give it a group color. So let's say group 6, we want to give it group 6. Then you can click on here and make it red and click on OK, and now the background is red, and oh my god, this looks really weird. Okay, so if you select one of them and then click on here, you're gonna see that there's this guy, which is perfect because now we can change the color to whatever we want and we can see it live. Also, always make sure that you save your level. So now let me just show you how you can make this guy basically follow you, right? So what we're gonna do is we are going to select everything. So we're going to select the entire thing again. By the way, one thing you can do is after selecting everything, click on edit group and then go into a new layer. Let's say layer 1, and then click on OK. And now if you deselect and then go on here, layer 1, now those objects are the only ones that can be selected. So you guys can see that you can do this, and the camera guide has not been selected, which is perfect because now we don't have to manually select this thing. We can just do that. And what we're going to do is give it a group ID of 1. So click on next free, and the next free is going to be free, which is 1 in our case. And now this background has the group ID of 1. So we want to place a move trigger right here. You can place it at the beginning of the level as well. This white line basically just indicates the beginning of the level, and then after adding this move trigger, you simply want to click on edit objects, give that group ID that you assigned to the background over here. So in our case it was 1, so we're just going to put 1, and then you want to make it follow the camera and on the X as well as the Y. And now you guys will see that if we start, what's going to happen is the background is going to move, but then it's going to suddenly stop because we said that we want to make this background follow the camera for 0.50 seconds. So we want to increase this to a lot. However, if you want to have the background forever following you, there's a small trick. So you can simply just type in -1. So just delete everything and just type in -1, and this will basically make the background follow you forever. But you guys can see that we don't want the background to be like that. This is like following us way too much. We want them to kind of have like a little parallax effect. So to do that, you can simply select the move trigger and click on edit object again, and then modify the X. So you can go in here and type maybe 0.7. Now if you start, you guys can see that this is almost starting to look like a background, and depending on the value that you put in here, I would say like the original background, like this blue one, I think it's 0.9 or so. Yeah, 0.9. Now you guys can see that it's literally following the exact same movement as the background, which is perfect. Now there are many different tricks you can do to make sure you save as many objects as possible. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to simply move this entire background like that, because as soon as you start, this is how the camera is going to be on attempt 1, and then from here on the background is simply going to follow you. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this actually, and now you guys can see that we have a full background kind of following us. But you guys see that there's going to be a problem. So if eventually, if you scroll too much, there is going to be an empty space and the background is going to be exposed, and they're going to find out that we're having a fake background, which is not that very cool. So you want to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned, and depending on your background, you might actually be able to basically, you want to make sure that your background is perfect for repetition. And what that means is, let me show you. There's a very nice hack that you can do to basically save as many objects that you want. So I can do a small example and show you exactly what I mean. So let's say this was your background, right? And let's say all that you're seeing is something like that, right? I'm just gonna select everything and then we're gonna zoom in. Let's say this is what you were seeing. So now I'm gonna look closely. I'm gonna move this to the left, and you guys can see, you guys actually can't see that the thing is moving. Why? Because if this block moves to the left and that one comes here and that one comes there, you guys are not gonna realize anything because they're basically gonna move to a new block that has the exact same properties, the same size, the same block, everything is the same. So I can keep moving this to the left or the right and you would not be able to notice anything. And that's what we're trying to do here. We want to have a perfectly crafted background for a perfect repetition. So to do that, there are a few tricks that you have to do. So what we're gonna do is select the bottom part and we're gonna align them on the X so that the distance between this and this is the same than the distance from this to this. So basically the distance between all of these guys is always the same, and that's exactly what we want. So we're gonna select these guys and make sure that this background is perfect for repetition. This is very, very important because if you have a level that you are trying to get featured, it is very, 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 very important to make sure that the level is playable without any lag on mobile phones, because the majority of Geometry Dash players, in case you guys didn't know, are on mobile. And so as a result, RobTop of course is going to be prioritizing the levels that don't have too much lag in them when it comes to making a level daily or giving it a featured. And now you guys can see that the background just looks a lot cleaner. And now if you want to test it, we can just test it. So we want to remove this move trigger for now. And if you want to if you have a trigger that you want to remove temporarily, but you want to like bring it back later, you can set it as touch trigger. And what this means is that if the player touches this trigger, like if the player actually goes into this box, then the trigger will be triggered. But since the trigger is so far up, the player will never touch it. So what that means is it is disabled. The trigger never triggers, and now the background is going to stay like that. And now we're going to do the test. So we're going to add a move trigger, and we're going to move this background by a specific amount, just like we did with these arrows. Now you guys can see that if I zoom in and do this arrow, we can still see that there's something going on. And that's because we need to find out the perfect distance between this and this, so that we move it like that, like this, exactly like that. And yeah, we just need to find that value so that we can move the background every time there is a repetition. This way we're gonna have an infinite background pretty much forever without using many blocks. So what we're gonna do is we are simply gonna place, I would say, let's just place this one right there at the edge. And then what we can do is copy and paste it, place it in here, I would say, and then move it up. And yeah, so the distance is exactly this. And to figure out how much that is in seconds, what you can do is simply like place a move trigger right there, and there's a cheat code where you can basically make this guy as you want, like for example 0.31, and you guys can see that this line is getting shorter. And if you guys don't have this line, go to here and then settings and then duration lines. You have to have this option over here enabled, and then you will see these lines on every single trigger. So 2.332, yeah, 32 sounds good. So 0.32 seconds. And how many units is that? And to figure that out, you can just copy and paste this, move it down maybe, and then count. So 1, 2, 3. So that's 3. I'm gonna keep 3 in mind, or I can just type it in here. And then we want to do this small one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and so 3, and then 5, and then the last one, 1, 2, maybe 3. So 2. So let's do 2. So we want to move it to the right by 1, 2, 3, and those units are in the move trigger. In an entire grid block is 10, so 3 would basically be 30. So what we're going to do is select that move trigger, go to edit object, and click here 30. And 5 is basically this one that we did, right? And that one, if you guys count, it's exactly 10 times. So if you move it 10 times using this, it's going to be exactly 1 grid block. So 5 in this case would be exactly 5 actually, because the calculations are the same. However, now there is a 2 and you can't do a comma in here. You can't do a comma too. So what you want to do is you want to convert this to a different format. So we want to use the small step, and if you click on here, you can see that the small step changes the steps to their actual number. So one grid space is 30 instead of 10. So what we want to do is we want to have this number that we had, so 35.5, and then we want to multiply that by 30. So 35.5 times 30, actually times 3, 35 times 3, because we don't really want to have that 10 because it's already being taken care of. And now if you click on small step, we want to do the exact same value that we had. So now we want to do a small test. We want to move it exactly in 0 seconds. And now if you give it the group ID and actually move the background, you guys will see that the background is moving and we're not even noticing it. And the only reason why we're actually noticing it is because we weren't in the exact middle. And now if you show the ground, you guys will see, actually we still needed to move like that. Yeah, maybe one more. You guys will see that now we are moving the background and we can't even spot anything happening. And this is so perfect because now what we can do is loop this trigger. So we want this to happen maybe every second or so. So we want to click on this and then create loop. And what this is going to do, create a few new triggers, and now you can set how many seconds you want to loop this with. So this is going to like loop this every second. So this one's going to be called every single second. And now you guys can see that every second this guy is moving, but since we have reached this guy, the boundaries, the edge of the thing, we are actually seeing the effect, which is not what we want. So we want to decrease that number 0.5. And now you guys can see that the move trigger is actually not too precise, and that's because we need to change the values for a bit and see what works perfectly. All right, this one seems good. So now you guys can see that the value is 103. So just adjust this value according to what makes the background feel unlimited if you scroll through it. So 0.5 is still a bit too much, so we're going to do 0.25, and now you guys can see that that's too low. So we're just going to play around with this value until we have like pretty much like an infinite background. And you guys can see that this background looks phenomenal. Right now we have found the sweet spot, and this is the sweet spot. You can never find the perfect sweet spot because the background eventually is gonna show, and the only way to fix that is to either like do some crazy calculations and figure out what is like the perfect value that you would have to enter to loop that trigger that you had, or that would be just to make an easier background to loop. And you guys can see it's been like around 30 seconds now, and it's starting to show the edge. So what you can do is simply just copy and paste it one more time. If your part is a bit longer, that's not an issue, but it's much better than having to copy and paste this like a quintillion times. Like this background is almost 100 objects, and we've actually, oh my god, we have exactly 100 objects in the level. So that's great. So now let's actually add a few more effects to this before we call it a day. So I want to have this kind of fade up, so the more up they are, the less of an opacity they're gonna have. So I'm just gonna add an object on here. You can pretty much add whatever you want. I'm gonna do this X, and then we're gonna give this a group ID of 3. Then I'm gonna use the area fade, and it sounds scary, but trust me, very easy. So just keep in mind that the background has a group ID of 1 and this X has a group ID of 3. And so enter the area fade by clicking on edit group, and then in here you want to paste the background, which is 1, and the center is the X, which is 3. And now what we want to do is select this one right here, and then go back to that page and make this one maybe like 0.8, not 0.8, like 80, but we're probably going to change this according to what we want, and then change the opacity to 1, and you guys will see that the background looks phenomenal, looks really cool. And you guys can see that it doesn't look that cool because the background in the back is still visible, and to change that you can simply change the background over here to a more solid one, or actually let's do a gradient one. Wait, wasn't there like a complete gradient background? I don't really know. I'm just gonna use this one because it still should feel pretty cool, so we're gonna do something like that. And now you guys can see that this looks very cool, and this is only 100 objects. Now you could go crazy by, for example, adding stuff like a gradient trigger, which I'm gonna quickly show you. I have a tutorial on how to use this trigger fully, but I'm just gonna do like a quick effect with this. So we're gonna do we're actually gonna do T4. Now we're gonna do B1, and then we're gonna give it a new ID, and we're gonna make it additive, and then we're gonna give it two new color IDs. We're gonna rotate it, and then we're gonna click on this one and change the color as we want. So this one we want to have it like kind of black, and this one has to be like more like blue purple-ish like that. And then let's just give the ground a cool color. Maybe like make it, if this one is like that, maybe a bit more this, and then we can make the foreground, the background I mean, kind of greenish like so. And now we have created a very beautiful looking background that you won't be able to notice too much that it's kind of like doing something if you actually have a gameplay going on. But again, if you guys want to do like insanely precise stuff, you just have to change the value in here and come up with the perfect value. This one also doesn't seem that bad, or just make your background a lot simpler. But yeah, you can use this method or whatever you want. But now we're gonna go back to our trigger in here, because right now it just kind of feels like this is not a background, it's just there, and we want to make it kind of move back with the camera. So we're gonna do this, and now you guys can see that this is, the values are way off, so we're gonna have to change it to fit the new values that we have. And now this should happen probably every like 5 seconds, because we were not really gonna, actually that's a bit too much. Let's do maybe like 3 or 2. So it's really just all about like figuring out the perfect values that fit your background. And if I move it like that, it should work pretty well. Yeah, now we have a background that's always there, looks beautiful. It's kind of moving a bit, which is just phenomenal. Looks very, very cool. And if it starts kind of going off, just change the values, or if your part is a bit longer, just extend the background like a bit. It shouldn't really be that much of an issue. And another thing you can do is, since you have this X right here, and we know that this is 1 and this is 3, we can add an area tint, edit object 1 and 3 over here, do this, and then give it like a color. Let's say we go more, and then we do the color of 10, we make it kind of red. So now we want to enter 10 in here and make it like that, and give it like so. And now you guys can see that the background's kind of coloring to red. But I'm actually gonna use which one should I use? I'm gonna use that one perhaps. Yeah, that one could be cool, but yeah, it's really all depends on what you want to do. Just do a bit of offset, or what we can do is change 10, like make it red. Okay, I'm gonna show you like a quick effect now before we end. So we want to change the color 10 to red, and then copy and paste it, and then change it to yellow, copy and paste it, change it to green, copy and paste it to cyan, then blue, and then pink, and then whatever. And then you want to select everything, go on here, and then create loop. And what that will do is basically change 10 and to like rainbow, because that's what we specified. And now you guys can see that the upper part is kind of rainbow, which to be honest doesn't look that bad. So yeah, you can really do whatever you want with this, and I kind of feel like this one should be a bit higher of a length like that. So now we have a rainbow up top, a more purplish down there, and this just looks pretty cool, right? So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoyed and learned something new. If you found this educational, make sure to slap that like and also subscribe, and let me know what kind of tutorial you guys would like to watch next, and I will see you guys in the next video. Also watch one of the